Good morning. It's Barb with Todally Inked here at wonderful downtown whatever. Good morning. This is Barb. I thought we'd go back to the basics today and get started with. Remember when we first started card making and we didn't know anything? Well, some days I still feel like that. Let's go back to the basics. How do you make a card? Let me just grab a card here. I've got one here somewhere. Okay, here's for an example. How do I even get started to make a card? Well, let's address that. Okay, you're going to need just your cardstock, and I've got 2 pieces. So how do we cut it? How do we go from this to this? It's not as bad as you think, really. You do need a good paper cutter. Of course, I have a Stampin' Up! One because I'm a Stampin' Up! Person. So, of course, I have a Stampin' Up! One. But you need a good basic card cutter, paper cutter. And preferably, this is a cutting blade and one with a score blade. Now, I don't have a score blade on this one. Someone lost theirs, so I popped mine out and gave it to them. So I'm going to show you an alternate way to score. So, let's put this aside. And if you want to make your card open like this, we're going to take our basic piece of cardstock. Can you see this? Where can you? There we go. And you're just going to, first of all, we're going to score it and then we'll cut it. And this will give you the hot dog way of scoring. And if you prefer your cards to open, I don't want to come out of book style like this or hamburger way, I'll show you how to do that. You'll do that. This way we'll score it and then cut it in half. So basically you're going to cut your cardstock in half. You're either going to cut it in half vertically or you're going to cut it in half horizontally. But while you're working, why not make it your work easier? Work smarter, not harder. So I'm going to take my paper cutter and I'm going to put my paper in. This is 8.5 by 11. So I'm going to turn it and I'm going to, half of 11 is 5.5. So I'm going to take my cardstock and I'm going to put it in horizontally and I'm going to score. Now you can, if you don't have a score blade, we have this wonderful You Pick It tool where you've got and you can pick up things or a scoring end. You could also use a bone folder. So I'm just going to score this at 5.5. Okay. You probably can't see that, but it is scored right there. So now that I've got this scored at 5.5, I'm just simply going to put it in my paper cutter and I'm going to line up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1/4. Each one of these long marks is 1/4 of an inch. So now we will just cut this in half. And now I have 2 card bases. Okay, that wasn't so hard, was it? Now we're going to come back here and we're going to line up our 2 ends. And I'm going to take my bone folder and we're just going to give this a good crease. So there's 1 card base. This is hot dog way. We'll just save that one for another day. So that was the 8.5 by 11. I turned it so that the 11 side went into my paper cutter and I scored it at 5.5. After I scored it, I put it in the paper cutter vertically and I lined up this edge with the 4 1/4 and I cut it. And that's how I got my 2 pieces, my 2 card bases. Okay, that wasn't so bad. Now we're going to take our 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock and we're going to make this style of a card. So let's come back with our paper cutter. Here we are. And we need to score this at 4 1/4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Each one of these lines is 1/4 of an inch, 4 1/4. I have washi tape here covering up. Our paper cutters have both metric and imperial. And I get a little confused. So by covering up the metric, my eye automatically goes to the imperial. So it makes it easier for me. Now, the last time we used our handy dandy U-Picket tool, this time I'm going to use my bone folder, and I'm just going to slide it in there. Okay, so now I've got a nice score. There, you can just see it. Okay, now, did I just do that the same way? No, I didn't. So this time I'm going to turn it horizontally, and I'm going to line it up with the 5 1/2. Stampin' Up! Gave us this nice 5 1/2 inch mark right there. So I'm just going to line that up at the 5 1/2 inch mark, and cut that in half. And look, now I have 2 more card bases. And again, we will just line up our 2 edges, take our bone folder, give it a good, and let's do it again. Ta-da! Look at that. That was easy, wasn't it? So now you have your 2 ways, your 2 styles of cards. Okay. Not so bad, was it? Now, because, let me write this down. Our card, that after we have cut it and folded it, the card base, this area right here that you're working with, is 4 1/4 this way, and this way is 5 1/2 inches. Okay, I'll put that there. Now, if you just take, and so now you want to do some layers, and this will work. Let's use this one, the hot dog one. Okay, so now your first layer would be 4 by 5 1/4, and that will just layer on like that. So you just decrease by 1/4 of an inch. So if you want to add another layer, we'll just cut this down another 1/4 of an inch, so we have 3 3/4 by 5. Then you can go 3 1/2 by 4 3/4, and then 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, then 3 by 4 1/4. I don't think you'd make a card with this many layers, but just in case. 2 3/4 by 4, 2 1/2 by 3 3/4, and I didn't, oh, that's the same size, okay? That's as far as I went. So here's my little handy dandy. If you want to catch a screenshot, your card base is 5 1/2 by 4 1/4, and then if you just decrease by 1/4, you get all these layers. So if you wanted to see if, okay, how would it look if I put a 3 1/4 by, no, how about if we did a 4 by 5 1/4, and then we put on one that was 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. Oh, that would look good. So there you go. There you have it. That's in a nutshell how to cut your papers. It's really quite simple. In a nutshell, you're going to take your 8 1/2 by 11. You'll score it at 4 1/4. Turn it the other way around, and then cut it at 5 1/2. Friends, I'm really tired. I just got back from backstage from Stampin' Up. We had a wonderful time, and I've learned a lot, but I'm a little tired, so please excuse all the mistakes that are in this video. And it's also one of my first ones. So there we have our how to cut your paper to get your basic card bases. That's all I have for today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll be back to bore you again later. Ta-ta for now.